Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time, still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Aiken, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters who joined forces to bring you Babylon 5 for the first time, and we had so much fun doing that, and we had so many requests from the folks out there, we decided to do it again with Stargate.
And this is still not a Star Trek podcast by any means. So we like to play games here on the For the First Time series of podcasts and shows. And the original game, the OG, is the rule of 3. This limits us to no more than 3 references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
And it's awesome to make those references because then I get to play this sound.
But there's a better sound. Because whenever we make a Babylon 5 reference now, since that's really our main jam right now, you're going to hear...
Oh, yes.
All right, Brent, we are watching the Torment of Tantalus this week. I don't remember what I predicted this to be. I think I pulled out something super vague on this one, and it's so vague I don't even remember.
I do remember. You said something about Daniel Jackson. He's trying to reach for something, trying to grasp something, and it's just out of his reach.
That's right.
But you kept it super vague.
Yeah, I learned from the best. Why don't you tell us about this one?
Well, this is episode 11 of season 1, The Torment of Tantalus. Fun enough. We talked about this last week. In Greek mythology, Tantalus, whom this particular episode is named after, was the father of Pelops, who was the Goa'uld from 2 episodes ago in Brief Candle. The two really don't have a connection, Jeff, at all. The original air date for this episode was October 3rd, 1997. Jeff, this is the first of only 2 episodes that is going to be directed by show creator Jonathan Glassner.
Okay.
And it will also feature as a guest actor in this episode, an actor who will eventually come back in a different role as a series lead, a series regular on Stargate Atlantis.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
So fun to see that. We've certainly seen that before in Star Trek and other places, you know.
Yeah. Here in about 4 years, I'll get to
Babylon
see that.
5. Do what? Yeah.
Here in about 4 years, I'll get to see that.
Hopefully it's not that long. Hopefully it's not that
There's a lot of Stargate SG-1 is a lot to this show.
It's about twice of what Babylon 5 is. And that's just SG-1. But who knows where we might start mixing in Atlantis, if we're going to even do Atlantis.
Right.
We're not committed to that one yet.
Yeah. Who knows?
Anyway, Jeff, why don't we go ahead and jump into this episode, Torment of Tantalus. For those of you playing along at home, the way this works is Jeff and I are going to go watch this episode right now. Like, we're going to do it right now. We're going to pause the creation of this podcast, and we're going to go watch the episode. Now, if you're watching with us on YouTube, you're going to get the reaction video because we're going to record a reaction video. That's going to come up right now. And if you want to see the full unedited reaction, well, head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Babylon5First.
And if you're one of our amazing listeners on a podcasting app like Apple Podcasts or whatever else is out there these days, CastBox and all that good stuff, we're going to break right here, and you're going to hear some stuff that happens. I'm not sure what it is. It's in the middle there. And when we come out of that, you're going to get to hear my first time reaction, my thoughts having watched this for the first time. And then you're going to get to hear Brent's take on any of the sci-fi messages that he was able to pull.
Which is
out
my
of
first
this
time.
one.
I'm watching for the first time for those messages. I've never watched this show. For all the times I've seen it, I've never intentionally watched for those messages. So that's what I'm doing in this.
And we've found some pretty great stuff and surprising stuff so far. So what do you say? Let's dive into the Torment of Tantalus and see what you get out of this one.
Mr. Lion Crown.
You know, you seem a tad obsessed with this stuff. How many hours of this stuff have you looked at?
There's no conclusion to the file. There's no summary, no notes, no reason to explain why they gave.
Something's happening. I saw like the gate is active.
That's impossible.
This doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't someone have told us this? I mean, why would they stop their research if they'd actually managed to turn it on?
Because of what's about to happen to Diver Dude. Uh-oh.
Holy cow.
And that dude is still out there somewhere.
That is true. He is still out there somewhere. I'll give you 3 guesses what this episode's about now, Jeff.
Right? Oh, is this going to be a deep dive into the physical training aspects of the SG-1 crew?
You.
Oh, I thought that's all they were talking about.
No, that was just the excuse to get Jack in the room to go, whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so the fact that they could see the Stargate, they're going to know the coordinates where he went, and let's go see where dude is. Let's go find out what happened.
you also saw something I don't think you've seen before. They're turning the gate manually.
Yeah, manually, which is
They
pretty
can
wild.
manually turn the gate. It doesn't happen often, but they do occasionally dial the gate manually from time to time throughout the show. So.
Miss Langford, there's a young man waiting for you in the kitchen.
You had a strange young man in the house?
So Jeff, we'll stop. If you remember, I told you last week, I don't know if it was on mic or off mic, but this episode features a character from the film.
Yes.
I have to call back. This old lady is the character from the film. Her name's Catherine Langford. She was the person in charge of the Stargate program and she personally recruited Daniel Jackson into the Stargate program. And she was in charge of the Stargate program during the first mission until Jack O'Neill came in and took it over on the military side.
Okay.
And I'll let you watch the film to figure out the rest of it. But that being said, that's where the interest is here. She also, just so you know, her father was the one who was leading the expedition that found the gate in Egypt back in the 20s.
Okay.
And, she was present. She was present there, and she had like a little medallion with the Eye of Ra and all that sort of stuff on it. So new actress, not the same actress as the film.
My God, why are you back? Colonel O'Neill said you stayed on Abydos.
Wasn't supposed to. It's supposed to be a secret.
Yes, of course. I never take it off. I avoid my question. What's this all about?
Well, I saw a video, and I got questions. Because she probably would have been attached to the program at that point in some way.
Dr. Jackson was supposed to be
or at least ancillary to it.
this morning. He's not
Well, her
here.
dad.
He's not answering our pages. Any idea where he is?
Thousands of stargates, planetary shifts. Didn't anyone think I might be interested?
That's why I came.
Now, 6 months later, you could have told me sooner.
Yes, just like you could have told me there were experiments done on the gate in 1945.
Touche.
Mm-hmm.
My father headed up a research team that worked on the gate during the war. Nothing ever came of it, though. How do you know?
The Pentagon has recently been declassifying old materials. They ran across a number of file boxes that dealt with the old experiments. And they said
They're going to declassify the Stargate program materials.
you weren't involved in the research?
And the multi-camera shoot that they
Military
had of
very
that
little
whole
use
thing.
for a 21-year-old girl at that time. I only know what little I overheard him and Ernest talking about.
I'm sorry, who's Ernest?
Let's see. I met him at camp.
Are you using alternating or direct current to charge it?
Alternating. I think.
He's like, don't you worry your pretty
Try
little
using
head about
direct.
that, sweetie.
It might prevent the charge from bouncing back to the generator. And you should talk to my father.
I'm smarter than you, but you still have to talk to my dad.
Yep. What a magical time.
You don't know that they turned the gate on in 1945.
What?
There you go.
So the man who went through the gate is Ernest.
Yes, my father must have lied to me. He said Ernest died in an accident.
And we can go there.
Oh, I hope she gets to go. And then they get the reunion. Oh, it'd be so romantic.
Sir, if you will just let me explain.
This is a serious breach of protocol. You think you're above them?
No, I...
Catherine!
Clearly you do.
Now, I have the address of the planet he went to, and we can go there.
321 Main
I'm
Street.
coming.
Yes. Definitely want her to
General,
go.
we know where Ernest Littlefield went. He could still be alive, a man who had the vision to see the gate for what it was a half a century before anyone else.
He sounds like a bona fide American hero, sir.
Ernest Littlefield could still be alive. We should try to find him.
Hammond's a good dude, man.
He really is. Like, he plays the
He'll get
general.
all boned up, but
Uh-huh.
he's a good dude. I do appreciate this moment here. Like we know how easy gate travel is right now, but they're helping 70, 80-year-old something woman like go through.
And really a woman who was instrumental, like, through her advice and things like that, to really make this work in the first place.
Yeah.
And then to bring, like...
In many ways, like bringing her mom.
Yeah, right?
You know, and like I love how she's got her arms hooked in, and like this is they're gonna help her go through. make sure she's good and safe. And she's about to have the ride of a lifetime.
Right.
She's so excited.
She's only dreamed of this before.
Oh, since she was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. There she goes.
They're not cold, so the cold thing went away.
Well, they fixed that.
Yeah.
Actually, it was more like they just didn't want to have to do it every single time you went through the gate, so we're just going to pretend like it didn't exist. We'll never talk about it again.
Yeah.
You okay?
Huh, it was some piece of cake.
He's going to come get hugged by a naked old
Catherine, is that you, Catherine? Let me come close. No, please keep your distance. Oh, wait, no clothes, but he's got a monocle.
Oh, when was the last time you had a
Hello,
bath?
I'm Daniel Jackson. We just came through the Stargate.
It's probably been going crazy. At this point, 50 years. Isolation. This is awakening something in me.
Do something.
Dr. Littlefield?
Yeah.
Here it is.
You don't recognize me.
Catherine?
50 years. That's all he has to say.
You know what that is, Jeff? That's the moment in The Last Jedi when Rey is holding the lightsaber out to Luke, and they end the movie with Force Awakens, and then they open back up on that one moment. She's holding it out, and he walks right up, and he goes, and he just tosses it over his shoulder. It's the same vibe right there. Same vibe. So what we learned is Nellie and Ryan Johnson both are Stargate fans.
Or at least
Nellie
this
watched
episode.
this and went, "It's hot in here, so take off all your." Yep.
Yeah, because clearly dude took off all his clothes.
Unless there's a reason to actually remove my clothes, I would still be wearing at least something
I imagine they probably disintegrated.
over time.
Yeah, I mean, I wear a pair of jeans for a while and
Yeah,
it starts
yeah.
to disintegrate. You know what I mean?
There.
Like
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly been able to find food and
water and yeah.
and whatever he's needed as far as medical care goes, or at some point you've got to be able to bathe. I think as a human, I don't think you can just not bathe.
There's a dude. There's actually a dude who didn't for like 60 or 70 years, and then he took a bath and died shortly after.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, don't bathe, Ernest. Got it. Let's go.
I'll go see if I can find him.
I wonder what her dad told him to help convince him to go to Stargate. He thinks Catherine has some negative view of him. Like,
It's an interesting theory,
so he's like, come to see me now
right?
after all that stuff your dad told me.
Well, yeah. Didn't you know Mass Effect totally stole from Stargate to build their show?
Still
I
here.
wouldn't be surprised.
Do you have anything to wear? Clothes?
Have you heard the term manscaping before? 'Cause we should probably talk about that.
Yes, we're taking you home.
It's all falling off, man. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Looks like a robin's egg in a nest.
There you go. He still has his
So
diver's
much time.
outfit, sort of.
Did no one try again?
That's a long story.
It's
It's not working.
I like.
It was
They don't
like
have to
that
do
when
the
I got
effect.
here.
They can just do what
That's
normally
why you
happens in
never
real
came
life.
back.
Right? Just hit it.
Does this mean we're not going home?
He also might have never came back because he didn't know the address to get back to Earth.
Yeah, he knew this place. They didn't have all the stuff figured out.
Or maybe he did. They clearly knew more about the gate back then than once they shuttered the program. You know.
Yeah.
Well, since we're going to be here a while, I'd like you to see something. What? Come on.
We've seen plenty,
It's the
sir.
safest room there is, especially in a storm.
Now he's talking normal.
Yeah, picking right up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
She's a physical specimen to aspire to. Oh, well, this is helpful. I feel like maybe they should bring Tilk in here.
Some sort of meeting place where four
Recognizes any
alien
of this.
races, denoted by the symbols and distinctive writing on the walls, would gather.
But I think we might be able to figure out some way to rig the power source directly to the gate and then dial in manually.
To MacGyver it.
This looks
But
familiar.
also, again, they said the manual
Touch it.
thing, so.
Wow.
Even if
You
it
know
wasn't
this?
the United Nations, it
Of course.
probably means something.
High school chemistry.
One proton, one electron.
They communicate just like they
Xenon.
figured how to communicate with the 10C.
So many electrons.
I've been here a very long time, remember?
For the record, she said that there's so many electrons, and they're using the electrons to determine what the things are. Elements are not determined by the number of electrons within the atom; they're determined by the number of protons. Now, typically, the number of electrons matches the number of protons, but not always. So you can't use
protons
that.
is atomic weight, right? Is that
It's
what
part
that
of the
is?
atomic weight? Yeah.
Okay.
It's the nucleus. It's what's actually in the nucleus. It's the electrons are the thing that fly around the outside.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever. Just saying. She's not apparently a chemist,
Thank
although
you,
she
Mr.
knows about electricity and DC and AC current. So whatever.
Yeah. That's not chemistry, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna blame this one on the show writers.
Yeah, I think that's a good, fair thing to do.
Yeah.
And maybe your own pedantry.
Things.
These images are the graphical representations of the basic elements.
11 elements on the periodic table.
118.
When I last looked.
Of course! How do you ensure universal communication? You reduce the method of communication to the most basic elements common to everyone and everything that exists.
Totally
in
is the
universe,
Discovery
Jack.
plot.
This is a true universal language.
Once again, Star Trek just ripping off other great shows.
Just stealing blatantly.
You didn't do it.
Go back to the direct current thing that worked last time.
Oops.
So it's just a big hole to water. Like there's the ocean.
There goes the DHD.
Oh, it dropped?
Yeah.
Was that the whole go home thing? That
Yeah.
dropped it? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so little update.
What's up, guys?
Dial home device just fell through the floor into the ocean.
So what are we going to do?
That thing may have a power source in it that we can use to get the gate working.
But then we're gonna lose all this stuff.
No.
Daniel's gonna be faced with a decision like this again.
Shoot it.
I mean, you gotta respect the fact in both cases, Daniel just makes the decision. Why didn't they use the staff? Isn't the staff a power source?
He just said it's not powerful enough.
Oh,
He did ask. What about the
Okay.
staff? It's not powerful.
I'm clearly paying very close attention.
Now what?
What's that
button,
first time
right?
watched? Come on. Gosh, Jeff.
Here he goes. What about the staff?
What about using energy from Teal'c's staff?
Okay,
It
there we
isn't
go.
powerful enough.
I saw it.
Please, there's not much time. We have to get inside that thing.
This
Say,
whole
Michael
place
Shanks
will join
can
the DHD at the
talk
bottom of the
faster
ocean
than
any
anybody
minute,
I've
so
ever known in my life.
please.
Like he can just.
Now what?
I'm obviously no scientist, but
Isn't lightning?
couldn't we use that Ben Franklin thing?
There you go. There you go.
I like how he references Ben Franklin instead of, I don't know, Back to the Future.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Come on.
lightning's gonna hit the clock tower. I
Uh-huh.
just,
Energy in many forms.
Much more
Heat,
relevant.
Nuclear, solar, static. If we could channel a lightning strike into the gate, it might provide us with enough power to dial in and make it through.
1.21 gigawatts.
Extract lightning to strike the gate.
Well, not directly. We'll have to rig something up on the roof. And
How much power does it
sudden
take to
and
power the
enormous
gate?
charge doesn't destroy the gate's mechanism.
1.21 gigawatts.
I was a fool.
Ernest, you suffered enough. No sense wasting time in the past. Right?
All we have is now. Oh. There it goes. There it goes. A little more.
Let's go, Teal! Start dialing
It's
in.
alive!
We may only have seconds once the gate is open.
It's alive.
What you did was courageous.
What I did was stupid. Come on, boys, we gotta go now.
I'm staying.
What?
Look, I will be fine down here.
Daniel, we can get
Catherine
back.
called it, right? With
What if the
Daniel,
capsule
you're the
crumbles
one
around
who
the
can
gate
do
and we
this because
miss
you're
this?
exactly the
We'll all
same
be
as
lost.
this dude.
If I stay, I could unbury the gate again.
What if the gate falls into the ocean?
I am willing to take that risk.
I'm not. Let's go. Jack!
He put hands on him.
Yeah.
There was a time when it was actually okay.
Mhm.
Or considered okay. It wouldn't fly today.
No. This was 97, right? So I was in the service at this time, and we were in that phase where it was becoming not okay. By policy, it wasn't okay. In practice, it was becoming not okay.
Let's go.
I would just like to recognize if it's not okay now, it really wasn't okay
Piece of
then.
cake.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it was never okay. It was socially acceptable.
there it is. That's the phrase. It always cracks me up knowing that in reality, all of the stuff falling on them weighs like 2 ounces.
Right, it's all styrofoam.
Right.
The worst thing is going to be the spray paint if it rubs off on you.
Right.
It's hard to get out. Perfect timing.
close one.
It's got to be wild for him to watch all this. Like last time he was here, they were pulling it with their
Chevron
hands.
7 will not engage.
Well, he's looking at these computers going, what is that?
Yeah, right? All the lights and everything.
It's safe
And
to say the place is gone.
it doesn't
Interact
immediately
with
give
it?
you cancer. Like,
Here's the bright side. You're alive.
At least he's had a bath by now.
Hug me.
Oh, Jack.
Uh-oh. So what do they do now?
right? They got some years to make up.
I mean, she's had a whole life. Like, I don't know if I assume she got married and had kids, and she might be a widow by now.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I literally have no idea.
He's a widow. She died to him.
Oh, yeah. All right, Jeff, that was Torment of Tantalus. We've just watched it like 30 seconds ago. Finished the episode. You are hot off the presses. Jeff, what you got?
Fresh as can be. Dude, I loved this episode.
I thought you might.
So
I thought
good.
you might. Yeah.
When in our watch of Babylon 5, there are episodes that we get done and we're like, how did they fit 2 hours of content into 44 minutes, right?
Oh, yes.
That's this episode. I feel like this was a film. The story they told, the emotions they took us through were incredible. At the beginning of this episode, I knew the little bit about Catherine you had told me. Within minutes, I was begging for the dude who went through the Stargate to be the dude that left her so we could have a reunion. And then we almost got it till he no-sold her and just took off. It's like, what's going on?
Right.
I loved it because it set up so many things that just looked like, oh, everything's just going to work out and it's going to be fine. When you think about it, Daniel went to find Catherine, tried to talk her, learn some stuff from her and then talk her into coming to check stuff out. That worked out really well. Came in, General Hammond's all mad at him, but Jack makes it fine and Hammond's actually fine. Everything's just going fine, right? But then stuff starts falling apart, and it starts when Ernest is like, Catherine, and takes like, whoa, what's going on here, And some of it got predictable, right? Like I knew pretty early on this place is going to start falling apart, the way that they were teasing out the sounds and the physical stuff. The need so they're out of power, and the fact that there's this lightning storm building up. Oh, okay, we're gonna have to do the Back to the Future thing and do the lightning,
Right.
But I mean that's TV, right? You set the stuff up and you pay it off. Yeah, it was excellent. It was so fun, but there's so much lore, in this episode. Like I'm just gonna go through a couple of bullets I have here.
Yeah.
So they were running experiments on the gate in 1945.
Yep.
And it was Catherine's dad who first discovered it in the 20s?
2028, I believe, was the year we were given. Yeah.
And do we know that from the movie?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think it's from the movie. I think they have said 1928 in the show once or twice, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But I think that that's the number that sticks out in my head. By the way, don't do the math on it where she's like, I was 21 and this was it, and I was 10 there. Don't do it. Just, it's okay.
Numbers are
People
great.
are estimating.
Yeah, I was gonna say numbers are great because they never lie.
Right.
They can also tell you whatever they want to tell you.
Yes.
So that's kind of a big deal. I guess in my head I thought that I thought everything around the Stargate started with the movie. Like they discovered it and it was a new thing. I didn't realize at this point that like she was running a research thing on it and there was work and that it went back that far.
So from the movie, just so you know, basically the opening scene of the movie is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The guys doing King Tut's tomb. Like it's that feel in Egypt. Somebody comes running and like, we found something. And they go, the white guy who's the boss, who he walks out there and they go see something. And next thing we know, they've got all these ropes around this big circular object and they pull it up and there's a Stargate. And here's this little girl running around and she has this necklace on. Right. And then the movie flashes forward and we see this older lady who still has this necklace and it's today, and so that's really we're not given in the movie what happened between one or the other. It's just she was the little girl on the dig way back when, and now she's running the program. This episode actually gave us some of what was going on back then.
Yeah, it fills in a lot of the past, which is cool. I like the way they formatted the episode too, where it would just kind of phase in and out of some flashbacks. And I think that was part of what made this feel bigger than it was. The episode never rushed. It spent time in all of these different places. Like we talked about, the dad, like we felt stuff from the dad in the couple seconds, that we got to see him. So, I mean, they really maximized all the screen time. This planet that they found here, that they were able to dial in that first time, wasn't on the cartouche they found at Abydos. So uncharted, essentially, unknown. They said that means
unknown to the Gould.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what they were saying, that means that the Gould have not found it yet. And they said a thing, I forget who said it, might have been Daniel, that kind of picks up on the Thor's hammer theme of trying to really find evidence that the Gould did not build the Stargates.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a theory that their feeling is probably right, but they're looking for that evidence for it. I found it interesting though. So it's Heliopolis, which is very Egyptian. Abydos, Egyptian. Abydos, though, ruled by Gould gods. No Gould over here. So where's the crossover that brings the Egyptian stuff?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that in this episode. I think when Ernest mentioned Heliopolis, he wasn't saying this is Heliopolis. I think he was just saying this is like Heliopolis, and Daniel was like, oh, because Heliopolis was a meeting place of the minds where people got to get them together and discuss stuff, and oh yeah, they actually used to worship Ra, and they just sort of let that go in the episode, which is fine. Didn't matter. But I think it was more, I don't think it was this is Heliopolis as much as think about Heliopolis. That's what I think this place was.
That was the other piece of lore that came out of this, was this apparently, based on the languages that were there and the evidence that Ernest was able to find, 4 alien groups came together in this meeting place and worked some stuff out. What they worked out,
like a
we
United
don't know.
Nations of sorts, they said.
Yeah. We don't know what they were working out. We know that they were using we have the assumption that they were using a universal language based on chemistry. Which, and I said this during the reaction, so I'm not going to buzz myself again, but that was basically the entire plot to season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. They made a point of noting the Norse language that was up on the walls and bringing us back again to the fact that Thor was an alien. They said it in an episode, they followed it up in an episode. I feel like they're wanting us to be sure that we understand that.
And not just that Thor was an alien, but that Thor's race is one of these 4 ancient races. And what we also learned from last week's episode, that at least that one race, now we don't know about these others, but that one race, they are way more powerful than the Gould.
Yeah.
Or at least we assume they are.
From what we know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look what they could do. And they're like, we told the system lords they got to stay out of this place by this decree, not an agreement, by this decree.
Yeah.
Subsection whatever, and you violated it, and now you die.
And I think what's important there too is that subsection from the system lords specifically said the Gould. So if we start piecing some things together, the Gould haven't found this place, but the Norse gods, the aliens, were involved in this. I can start really seeing how the Gould came up and are really seen as just like this pest, this infestation that it's awful. And they're like locusts, right? You don't check them, they'll take over, they'll kill everything in their path. But if you check them, which we saw with Thor's hammer, then you're fine. You just got to kill them. Just got to squash these things. But in most of the galaxy, they're running around unchecked because these 4, I'm going to call them the first 4, which I think is now going to give kind of an overarching story throughout the series as they try to find them, so that they can then come back together as the final 4. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Last big thought on this one. This episode did a great job hitting the emotional highs and lows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the soundtrack was perfectly executed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed and appreciate the construction of this episode.
Jeff, let me ask you, how would you be if you were alone for 50 years?
For my Star Trek podcast, the Starfleet Leadership Academy,
Mhm.
I watched the Voyager episode 1.
Love that
And
episode.
it's so
Such a-
great. I do a couple things in the Starfleet Leadership Academy. Primarily, I'm trying to extract leadership and management lessons from this whole thing. This doesn't happen often, where I had a plan of what I was going to talk about, but I ended up, like, the story took me in an entirely different direction. But I was really struck in that episode about how she spent a month, 30 days on her own, and was on the verge of self-harm and destruction of the ship because the walls between fantasy and reality were so shaken for her.
Mhm.
And when I was talking about that, I went to, here in the United States, we have a barbaric, inhumane practice in our prison systems of solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And in every single case, there is extreme damage, physical damage to the brain, and then that, manifests in personalities and mental health. And just, it is arguably the worst thing you can do to another person is isolate them.
But think about this. Okay. In parenting.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a kid who's about old enough, and this is the most effective thing I can do to him. What do I do when he misbehaves?
Go to your room.
You're grounded.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's horrible.
If he can't go see his friends for 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
Sometimes having the break for a day or two isn't bad, but like he needs to get out and go see his kids. Like he's got to go meet his boys. Like,
we need that. We are a communal species, and it's necessary for us. So in that episode, I went down that path and I learned so much about the dangers, the long-lasting effects of solitary confinement. So when I take all of that and I lay it over 50 years, 50 years, I wouldn't survive it. I would not survive 50 years alone.
Yeah.
So that's my first initial reaction to this whole thing. I really dug it. I'm just going to, spoiler alert, I'm really anxious about the ranking on this one because I got feelings, but there have been some other great episodes in this season. So, but before we get to that, Brent, you watched this episode for the first time with the lens of what kind of sci-fi messages are buried in this or apparent in this. So why don't you tell us what you got out of your experience viewing this one?
I actually have a whole list of notes, and then it all comes boiling down. I love when shows do this. They boil it all down into one tiny phrase that is perfect. Ernest Littlefield says this: "No prize is worth attaining if you cannot share it. There is no point." That is a lesson that we should all do well to learn. This was the lesson that it's different from Daniel's lesson from last week. I know you compared this a lot to Daniel from last week, where Daniel had to make the choice to shoot the Thor's hammer in order to save Teal'c. And this time he had to make the choice to at least stand aside while they destroyed this thing that meant a whole lot. And he said, "I'm willing to stay behind."
Yeah.
And Jack goes, "I'm not willing for you to stay behind." Because Jack cares about Daniel.
Yeah.
It takes a smart person, a brave person, to know what's really important in life. For Ernest, he learned the hard way that he should not have chosen his curiosity over his love, his career over what would have been his family. Catherine was bitter and chose to live with bitterness. Even if she thought he was dead, there was still something in her that flickered real fast, right?
Well, she explicitly said she never forgave him.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Daniel was about to risk his life to stay behind, knowing the likelihood was that he would be trapped And yeah, you could just come back and get me. No, we can't, because the whole gate might be gone. And you know what? We don't have cool ships to fly over here and get you. So, but he's like, I don't care. I'm gonna. No, because no prize is worth attaining if you cannot share it. Otherwise, there is no point. Jeff, I guess it would have been my third podcast. It's a show called the Pewtercast. It was covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That show blew up.
It's big.
It was huge. It was huge. It still is in many ways. But it was huge. It was in a time when sports podcasting was still a new thing. And it really led the way. We got to work with the NFL and helping to define what media is, new media. And think about it, the NFL owns a day of the week. If they start saying this is media, guess what? Because media is changing. Anyway, we got to do the thing. The show was amazing. Show was going great. It was at its height. And my kid came to me one day. He was, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. And he says, and we I always read to him before he goes to bed. He said, Daddy, you going to read to me tonight? I said, sorry, buddy, I can't tonight because I have to podcast. And I felt myself throwing up in my mouth as I said that. And as I was walking upstairs to go do the show, I said, I am never saying that to him again. It's not going to happen. And it was later that night that I told my co-host, I'm leaving the show.
Wow.
The show that I started, my baby. And it was 1,000% because of my son. And boy, I'm going to keep this first. No podcast is worth having if I can't share it with the joy of not just a co-host, but my family. Nope.
Day one for us, rule number one.
Yeah.
Was this podcast will never supersede anything in our personal lives. And both of us, various times during the year and a half or so we've been doing this, last minute, hey, not tonight. Daughter needs something. Oh, kid this, wife this. Cool, no problem.
Every time.
Every time.
It's not even a question.
Not even a question, because we established this from go.
Yeah.
There's
part of the DNA of this show. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the point of that being, I love this phrase. No prize is worth attaining if you can't share it. At some point, you've got to be responsible. At some point, you've got to know what is actually valuable and what is not. It may not be your career. It may not be your curiosity of what's going on through there. Anyway, that's what I'm going to go with on this one, is that line. No prize is worth attaining if you can never share it. Otherwise, there is no point. So the question falls to me is, how many chevrons? How strong is that message? On a scale of 0 to 5 chevrons, Jeff, I think ultimately that's what this episode was about. Everything flew to that one. I mean, it all pointed from Catherine's story to Ernest's story, both sides of it. They presented a problem. They discussed it. We showed it. They showed us both sides of it and how it goes wrong with Ernest and Catherine. And then you put Daniel right in the middle of a similar situation. And he had to make that decision and listen to the old folks say, don't do this. Hey, you could also probably pull another message of listen to those who've gone before you.
Right.
I've had a lifetime. Trust me on this one. Yeah, I think this is a 5 chevron episode, Jeff. Like, because it went to that. Like, were they intentional about this and put it to that spot? Yes, they did. 5 chevrons.
The whole listening to the people who've gone before you. There's so many pieces of wisdom that are just part of our vernacular, right? We just know. But clearly in this episode shows we don't take to heart. The one that I'm thinking here is, what is the one thing every person bemoans or complains about or regrets on their deathbed? Spending time with their loved ones. No one is like, oh, I should have discovered that thing. I should have wrote that thing. I should have put in the hours. They're like, I wish I would have spent more time with the people I care about.
Yeah.
We've all heard that. But you know what we're all doing? We're all writing that thing. We're all recording the podcast. We're all putting in the extra hours at the expense of the thing that we know we're going to regret not spending our time with. Listen to the people who came before us.
And just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with writing that thing or doing that podcast or discovering that thing. You
It's
just
doing
can't do
that.
it at the expense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that other thing dominates everything else. You pull it into conjunction. It's an interdependence.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, before we go any further, we do want to update our tracking sheet. We are tracking a few things over the course of the show just for funs. We got a crying out loud in this episode,
got one,
which
yep.
brings my tracking total up to 7.
Look at
Oh,
that.
I haven't missed one. But that brings us up to 7. We got 1 Daniel death on the screen, and we're still waiting on a few of the others to kick in for number 1. Jeff, that being said, I gave this one 5 chevrons. I rated this episode. You, sir, get to rank this episode. You get to place this episode on our 100% completely accurate, immutable ranking of season 1 of Stargate SG-1. Our top 5 currently, Jeff, is the Nox sitting all the way up at top at number 1. Cold Lazarus sitting at number 2. Brief Candle at number 3. The Broken Divide at number 4. And I believe this is probably the week where Children of the Gods is going to get pushed out of the top 5. Jeff, what you got for us?
You know, I look at the top 3, the top 2 specifically, and I feel like
say top 3. No.
Yeah, I look at the top 2 here. Well, I was just going to say, I look at that, and I think in terms of like the Nox, I feel like at this point in the viewing thing, the community is probably like, yeah, that's probably the right call. I feel good on that. Cold Lazarus, people don't feel so good about. Like that's a
it's your
Jeff,
TKO of
right. 100%. This is the thing that spoke to me in a way.
No, but I'm sorry. Can I defend the Cold Lazarus thing? Because I never would have put it up at number 2. But you made a really good point. It is not a fun episode. It's not one we want to watch again, but it is incredibly poignant, which makes it a great episode.
Exactly.
That I just don't really ever want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So
this, though, Torment of Tantalus made me feel. It made me feel so many things. Roller coaster of emotions. Also, it was super entertaining. It was super educational around what this whole Stargate thing is. This had everything. This episode did more to immerse me in the world of Stargate than even Children of the Gods did. Brent, this is our new number 1 episode.
Has to be.
Has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that is no knock on the Nox, because I love that episode as well. But
it's almost like the number 1 episode is the Torment of Tantalus, and then the Nox is actually number 8. Like there's that much of a divide between, and maybe not number 8, but like this episode sits high above, in my opinion, what we've seen so far. This is a different tier of episode.
Well, Jeff, I think that's going to do it for us here talking about Torment of Tantalus. Next time, the name of our episode is Bloodlines. Dun, dun, dun. Jeff, you care to venture a guess as to what this episode could be about?
They're going to go to a planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's my prediction. No. They're going to go to a planet. There's going to be a royal family, essentially.
Okay.
And they're going to, when they show up, there's going to be a usurper or someone with a claim. Like I'm thinking season 1 Game of Thrones, right? Where Ned is going through trying to track down all of Robert's bastard sons for everything. It's going to be kind of similar to that. And it's going to be a question of, do the bloodlines rule, and like, what is the right way to parse all of this out?
You're a good guesser, Jeff. You're a good guesser.
You keep saying that. One of these days I'm going to hit it. So,
well, we are going to see next time exactly how close or far away Jeff is right here on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please, wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to subscribe. If you're joining us on YouTube, please don't forget to like as well as subscribe, hit that bell icon, share this video, share the podcast. Best way to get the word out is through you, word of mouth. Say, hey, I found this cool podcast, and you guys would also enjoy it because you love Stargate SG-1, or you love Babylon 5, or you like Star Trek, and here are these 2 Trekkies that are checking out these other 2 shows. Check us out. Or maybe you know somebody who needs to get into SG-1 for the first time, and they just need somebody to do it with, and we would be happy for them to join us in our journey. That being said, we're going to get out of here. So thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We will see you right back here next week on
Stargate
Brent. SG. Yeah.
got a question for you. It's kind of a fashion question.
Hmm.
Do you think I should put some clothes on, or is it cool to just let this thing hang out?
Oh, for crying out loud.
That's not cool. It's not okay.
I'm just gonna say Richard Dean Anderson says it way, but he can say it 53 ways better than I can say it one. So
there's a reason
There's the reason he made the Bucks.
Yeah, he's been the lead in a couple of shows, so it lasted a while. So there's something there.
Both shows lasted a while. Yeah. I mean, the man got like a 20-year career off 2 shows.
It's pretty amazing.
Like, and then whatever else he might have done in the meantime, like that's not awful. That's not awful. That doesn't suck.
All for being able to say "for crying out loud" 68 different ways.
Right. Hey, listen, Club 65. We hung out with you guys last week. I've actually got to go. So we're going to jump out of here. Thank you guys so much. We will talk to you guys next time right here at Stargate SG1 for the first time. Thanks for joining us.
Hasta la pasta.